Yo, what's up you guys, it's Jason. So I figured I'd make a video about the mercury poisoning symptoms I experienced. Um, yeah, just make it like a separate video because I thought like combining it with like the story and the other aspects would be a bit much at once. Yeah, also just to share my experience. Um, Maybe have people get a little bit more clarity or have people feel less alone if they go through the same symptoms or just not feel as crazy because I know sure as hell I did when I went through all those things without knowing what was up. Yeah, I'm having my notes right here. I wrote them all down. Um, Sadly, they're not exaggerated or made up as some people would like to believe because it's just a very long list, and usually it doesn't really fit um, kind of a cluster like with other diseases or illnesses. So that's that. Um, and people quite often don't recognize it. Yeah, what else did I want to say? I'm probably forgetting some, and let's see how this goes. I guess let's just get into it. So the most prevalent symptoms I had were seizures, nervous breakdowns, tremors, like every morning I would wake up shaking. Um, and there's also a little story to that. So I was working as a waiter once I got a little better and was able to work again. And there was this one time where I was serving coffee to a table, and I was putting it down in front of the man, and was shaking a little bit like I usually did. And the man said in his like very lovely Bavarian accent, "You're shaking like an eel. You probably need a shot to calm down." And there was one of those moments where you know you know it is bad, but you never really realize it yourself because you're always it's just your new normal. You don't get the contrast unless you act you have experiences with other people, with the outer world, when you're not isolating yourself. um, Also, especially eating soup in front of people was pretty nerve-wracking, and now I can laugh about it, but back then I was very very ashamed of it. Also used to eat alone at work because of that and because of social anxiety, which is also come to that later, also a symptom of mercury poisoning. Yeah, so let's go to the next one. Next one is carbohydrate intolerance. I wasn't able to eat any kind of sugar, starch, whole foods like fruit or potatoes or rice without my other symptoms getting like 10 times worse. Especially for some reason with rice, I noticed that my seizures would get a lot more frequent. Um, Now, having done some research, I also believe, or it's my theory, that it could have been from a thiamine or a vitamin B1 deficiency. Yeah, but that's just my speculation. Like, no doctor could ever help me with that or tell me anything about that. Next one is either insomnia or exhaustion. Like, I would get hormonal imbalances. I was basically having like the symptoms of a menopausal woman. In winter, when it snowed outside, it was really cold. I needed to have the window open at night to just be able to sleep. Um, a lot of times I would just lay awake until 8, 9 a.m. in the morning until I was finally able to fall asleep, or I was just really exhausted and I needed to sleep at least like 14 hours to be, I wouldn't even quite say function because I wasn't functioning at that time. Um, but just to be kind of presentable, to get up, take a shower, and put on my mask of being okay, like pretending to the outer world, to other people. Next one is memory loss and brain fog, which was by far the most terrifying thing for me personally. I was always very identified with my intellect and good at school and stuff, and losing that really felt terrifying because it was such a big part of me, and suddenly like that aspect of my identity would slip away and I could do nothing about it. Yeah, like for example, forgetting what you were talking about at the end of your sentences, like you didn't know what you were starting with in the first place. Or one time I remembered I was watching like a TV series, and just to get a little bit of distraction, to like distract myself from all the emotional stuff that was going on at that time as well. And yeah, at one point I realized like I had no idea what the episode was even about. I had no idea what just happened 10 seconds ago, and yeah, that was just really scary to realize. What else? I've been getting gray hair since I was 16, and also just some weird changes in my hair color. Like over the last few months, my beard has gone from like dark brown to ginger, and now it's turning back to dark, and I don't know why. I assume it's because of my diet, because I was doing keto, and now I'm eating a little bit more carbs and fruit, so possibly that. Hair loss, as you can see, I'm shaving it off now, and just in general feeling very old and tired and chronically fatigued. Like I would never feel really present. Yeah, my sweat started to smell really disgusting, like I was rotting from the inside out, and no amount of showering or cleaning myself would help with it. Like I'd get out of the shower, and 5 minutes later, I would again smell really disgustingly, and that was also something I was really ashamed of. And even actually, it took some time to realize that it was me. But you know, if it follows you everywhere around, you kind of get the sense that it must be you. You know. Already had that. Anxiety, like from everything and nothing, social anxiety, and I was pretty relieved to hear that from other people who also were going through mercury poisoning, who shared that they also like just everything was too much, like just existing and breathing felt painful, just a little bit of light from the outside, just their partner breathing next to them felt physically painful, and I can really attest to that. Severe clinical depression, and that's just like a duh thing. When you have it, you know it. But eventually, I got diagnosed, got it confirmed. Suicidal thoughts, like I was basically having suicidal thoughts all the time. You eventually learn to ignore it. And I also couldn't wrap my head around how other people, like in that space, I thought like everybody had suicidal thoughts all the time, because it was just something I was getting so used to, and with also sporadic incidences of actually being suicidal. Yeah, and it's also a symptom of mercury poisoning, which is understandable if your nervous system is breaking down, you know. Muscle pain and weakness, shortness of breath, hallucinations, like when you see in the movies when people trip on acid. I never had that experience myself, but I could imagine that that's similar, or at least it felt similar. So when I was just looking around, like the walls were moving and stuff was just kind of warpy. So I'm not sure if it was hallucinations because of metabolic processes in my body, or another symptom of dissociation, like the derealization. I was feeling drunk or hungover without having consumed alcohol. Slurred speech, tunnel vision, feeling like blacking out. Uh, I don't know how to else describe it, but it felt like falling asleep with your eyes open, like just a moment. I don't know how to else describe it. Yeah. Um, Crawling in my skin, like every time I started to sweat, it just felt very itchy all over my body, so my face and head and on my feet. Just that uncomfortable pins and needles feeling. Let me just, yeah, scroll down. Irritability, no sex drive at all. My wounds would heal very slowly. Obsessive thinking, heart palpitations, and there was one time where it was really bad. So my symptoms started when I was 16. Now I'm 22, and for the most part, I didn't know what was going on. I just thought it was emotionally just something all of a sudden broke, and it was just damaged goods, basically. Um, yeah. So after a few years, I started to develop paranoia, and I actually thought about whether or not I should include this, but it's just what happened, and why should I feel ashamed of it? But one time I was locking myself in the bathroom with a broomstick because I was convinced that somebody at any moment would come in and try to murder me. And it's like in that moment it makes so much sense in your head, but looking back at it, it's like, fucking hell, that really happened. How did I get into that? And just generally thinking also when I got better and I was able to work full time again, I'm like, how the hell was I able to maintain that, to hold down the job? How the hell was I able to have conversations with people and manage my life in the state I was in? It's just, in retrospect, it's sometimes kind of mind blowing to me. Yeah, also some other people reported this feeling of their brain drying out, and I also experienced that. Chronic sinusitis, kidney pain. For a few months I was losing the feeling in my hands and fingertips. And then of course, obviously because of the hormonal imbalances and sleep issues and stuff, it's pretty obvious that I also had adrenal fatigue. At one point I started to crave sugar a lot, which didn't help because I couldn't really deal with carbs, which I assume came from the adrenal fatigue just progressing. Yeah, and also because of the issues with my, how do you say that? Heat regulation with my, I just called that, issues with my thyroid. Also worsening of eyesight. I had this kind of tooth, not quite an implant, up here. That's also when my symptoms got a lot worse. Yeah, and I noticed especially this eye would get worse. I couldn't see as clearly as I was able to before, and my doctor never could tell me anything. He said everything was fine, but I still noticed the difference. And also floaters, like these little dots in your vision that would just float around. Yeah, I'm just thinking if I forgot anything. Probably. Yeah, so that's my list of physical symptoms. Then there are, of course, the emotional and social symptoms, just like feeling like you're going insane for no reason, self-blame for not being able to function, not even live, but just function anymore, being seen as lazy, losing relationships with others. I almost started cutting because of to deal with the emotional distress. I never, before that point, I got drunk once when I was 19. I never touched any alcohol before that. And then over a period of 3 months when I was really suicidal, I used to binge drink once a week. Just very heavily, basically just pure vodka and a little bit of Coke to wash down the taste. But it wasn't really to enjoy anything, it was just to forget and to numb myself out. Yeah, and I'm glad I didn't continue that. Yeah, so that was basically it. If you have any questions, check out. If you have a feeling that you might have mercury poisoning, check out Mercury Madness, Josh Mason or the Detox Dudes on YouTube, and Wendy Myers on YouTube. So those are the sources that helped me the most. Sadly, I didn't get anywhere with doctors. I only felt pretty disappointed. And most of the healing I've done is because of own research and because of other people who share their own experience and their knowledge. And for that, I'm very grateful. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I hope it was a little bit informative, and also to the people who have somebody in their lives who you, after hearing that, might think they'd have mercury poisoning. Maybe I'd encourage you to ask them to get checked for mercury poisoning or just any other kind of metal toxicity. Yeah, and to be loving towards them, to support them in ways that don't interfere with your personal boundaries. To not tell them that they are making it up or they're crazy and don't have a valid reason to feel that way, because it's just the worst thing. Yeah, because when you're in that situation, a lot of times you can't help yourself because you're just too deep in your own shit and too deep in depression. Yeah, so as for now, I've been getting a lot better. I'm still dealing with mostly brain fog, chronic fatigue, and depression, but compared to what it was like, it's just nothing anymore. Yeah, so that was it. Thank you guys for watching, and have a beautiful day wherever you are. Peace. Much love.